this a good stopping point?
Yeah, man.
All right.
I'm sorry to be that guy, but I almost want to fucking start from scratch.
That's okay.
Oh, that was a live fire exercise there.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Mike, I was talking to some people that were listening to the show. We call them fans. You may call them something else.
I call them fans.
Yeah. And they were wondering why we drop everything on Wednesdays.
Because it's hump day to help you get over the hump.
I thought it was because it was comic book day.
I thought it was because it makes people want to hump.
Yeah, see?
That's the dream.
And now there's an explanation.
You know.
Yeah.
And knowing is half the hassle.
Gee. We'll have to get Depeche Mode on the show to help us with this.
There you go.
Sound like nothing, but I think Depeche Mode fucking kicks it.
Well, I guess we're live now. So, Mike, you wanna kick us off and introduce everybody in the show and tell everyone that we're so happy you're here to listen to us.
Hey, thanks for coming back, everybody. I'm gonna try out my new official opening. It goes a little something like this. Hey-o! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclast podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Matt.
I'm J-Lo.
On the wheels of steel. And today, we have someone I guarantee you've probably never heard of, but I guarantee you've most probably, felt their cultural impact. Or, well, I don't know if felt
At least their cultural export.
Yes.
For sure.
You probably actually saw it or heard it as opposed to felt it, because most media, we don't have the technology quite to feel it yet, unless it's emotional. But I digress.
Just feel it out, Mike.
Yeah. Just feel how it feels to feel your feelings. Anyhoozle, today we're talking about a fella by the name of Edogawa Rampo, Japanese mystery writer, and also purveyor of a very, let's say, very Japanese genre called Edoguro Nansensu, which we'll get into later as well. Today we'll also talk about Japan and a little bit of its history and why the world was the way it was. Well, the world in Japan, as far as they were concerned.
Why his world was the way it was.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for putting it so succinctly, Matt. We'll also talk about an incident of real-life supervillainy, which you know is all up in my alley. So, yeah, that's kind of what you got to look forward to today. It's going to be a weird one.
Hang on to your butts.
Yeah. In the words of Sammy L. So, Matt, why don't you give us a little bit of your old history voodoo that you do?
Well, in researching this guy, we did find some very interesting stuff, and I'm very impressed with this guy, man. This guy is a born-again badass. This dude was pretty defiant against the Japanese government at the time, which we all know
wasn't probably not a bright idea.
Yeah. Life was hard. His pen name, Mike, is
Edogawa Rampo.
And it's often confused with the M and the N. You'll see both spellings of that.
Bit of a pan situation.
Yes. Comba with a B. You see that a lot when you look this guy up like we did. And the amount of research we put into, I was very confused. I thought there was two different people. And he was denied his ability to vote by mail from me because I couldn't decipher who this person was. Anyways.
On some kind of social security scam.
So he was born as
Hirai
Toro.
Bear with us on some of these Japanese pronunciations, by the way. It's not our first language, but gosh darn it, we're doing our 110th percent.
I do know this much. The only Japanese I've been taught is the most polite Japanese.
Yeah, and all the Kirin Ichiban you drink.
Yes. And I practiced last night by drinking Toki whiskey from Japan and also the Kirin Ichiban first press malt. Very delicious. Anyways.
Sounds delicious.
That's not payola or plugola. That's just me.
Yeah, you're getting the Kooks Cranks bump.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Lucky you.
Kirin Ichiban. Anyways, he was born in October of 1894 and he was raised in Nagoya. And if you know anything about Nagoya, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If you know anything about Nagoya, don't cross me, Nagoya.
You're going to hear a lot of interjections from me on some of the pronunciation. Yes. I know it a little bit better because of all the nerdy goddamn manga and anime that I surround myself with.
But now here's Matt's time to shine.
Yes.
If you're part of Camp Matt, you're about to enjoy this. To fully appreciate the work the guy did in his lifetime, you need to understand the previous 50 years of history in Japan, because a lot of stuff happened to change the way an entire nation's identity and even their collective conscience worked.
That's previous to his birth, not
the
contemporary 50 years.
Previously on
Japan, an ongoing series.
An ongoing saga. So take us back all the way back to your mind's eye. You're just going to have to follow me here, where we go back into 1853, and Commodore, not those Commodores, but Commodore Matthew Perry, and not that Matthew Perry, but Commodore Matthew Perry sailed the Pacific Ocean to try to open relationships in the market with Japan.
Trying to find some oxycodone.
Maybe. He may have just been looking for some great optics, robots, or...
Sorry, I was thinking of that other Matthew Perry.
Yeah. A prosthetic finger.
I don't even remember filming like 5 seasons of that goddamn show.
You'll call me.
I thought we were friends.
So in 1853, Matthew Perry landed there, and he actually got the deal, man. They opened up trade with the U.S., and prior to that, the only other nation that the Japanese had even had any minute dealings in were with the Portuguese. That was only because the Japanese really hated the Spanish, because these, I guess it's historical facts, so I'm not going to get in trouble about it, but they didn't like the fact they were Catholic and that they were telling the Japanese you're doing it all wrong.
Yeah. And, there was a lot of Portuguese missionaries.
Yeah. They're like, oh, no, we're nothing like them. It's cool.
Yeah.
And
the Buddhists and the Shinto, which were the main religions, back then and still are, were very Catholics there.
So, no, I mean, thanks. even though Portugal was a predominantly Catholic nation, they're like, okay, you guys are low key, so it's okay here and there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't the Portuguese get along pretty well with the Japanese?
They did. They were the first to start importing firearms to them. In fact, the Portuguese have a long history of importing firearms to underserved nations, I guess would be their classification of people without guns. We bring you love.
Humanitarians.
We bring you safety.
Utopians.
Yeah.
It is my understanding that the Portuguese were impressed with the Japanese taking a bath every day.
Yeah, that's actually true. The Western world does not have the same hygiene standards as a lot of Japan, especially because they've always been into like the sacred springs kind of thing. Plus, I don't know if you've ever seen public toilets in Japan or the East, really, in general. But here in the West.
Is this going to turn into the whole don't put a bidet in your toilet conversation again?
No, I was going to say that, compared to like the Eastern world, quote unquote, like apparently we've been taking a shit all wrong for years and years and years now. Yeah. But I digress. Sorry.
No worries. So even I did too. So late.
I'm with Wellesley on that opinion.
Yeah. Anyways, hey, Wellesley, how's it going? We rejoin our story here where Commodore Matthew Perry has established a trade market. And a lot of that was based only because of a couple of things, right? There was a lot of whalers, and not Bob Marley and those fellas, but just some whalers in general that needed to get back to a safe port to refuel their ships for coal, and they needed supplies and loose women, and they didn't have
booze.
Yeah, they didn't have all that on the open ocean, and you got to do your thing. But so with that comes a lot of not only a cultural exchange of ideas and exports and imports, but also goods. And if there's one thing America's good at, and you international fellas will know exactly what I'm talking about, it's making firearms. There's a ton. And America introduced the puckle gun to them, and the
Pardon, puckle gun with a P?
Puckle gun.
Puckle gun.
It's a hand crank machine gun that fired either a 50 caliber ball or a mini ball.
That is a deceptively cute name for such a fucking annihilator of life.
Yeah. It was magazine fed, which is even more insane that it would just drop it in there and load it for you.
Yeah, I got some magazines for you.
Yeah, it's Nudie Magazine Day. Anyways, so all these firearms in Japan that, the public can't afford it. So it goes straight to a couple of shoguns. And now there's a power vacuum because some of these guys have lots and lots of guns.
Yeah.
And some of them just have this stupid thing called a katana and skill and martial arts.
I believe the old saying is don't bring a katana to a 50 caliber machine gun fight.
Exactly.
That's a direct historical quote.
Well, we say that here in Texas all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've said
that
it.
And y'all, like, those are the two things you will always hear people in Texas say.
I've said it 10 times today before we even started the show.
However, all three of our dialects are deceptive.
Yeah,
where we live.
I've been told that as well.
Yeah, people think I'm from Minnesota, but I'm not.
I just, people were like, you sound like you're from the north. And I'm like, well, I read. So
most people do not talk like us where we're from.
Any hoozle. So
sorry to take the mystery out of it, ladies.
So we get to the point now where we have an influx of firearms that have been supplied to a lot of, let's call them interest groups. And they're all vying for control, right? And so the guys that were real hardcore, the samurai at the time, they were basically the aristocracy of Japan. They had,
most definitely.
They had a lot of sway. They throw down at a moment's notice because
it was a warrior culture for so long.
Yeah,
and
badass warrior culture for so long.
And during this time, to a degree, yes, still is. So
when Joe Blow Hironichi walks in. And says, yeah, I'll volunteer to fight for you if you got a rifle for me. And they said, we sure do. Absolutely. Here you go. We're even going to teach you how to fire it. By the 1860s, the guy on the street, a peasant who knows nothing and has, maybe 10 weeks of training or less.
Your average drunken moron.
Or, I don't know. Or, they're out working their rice paddy or working their tea patty or whatever. I don't know what the tea plantation. I don't know the proper nomenclature for that. Anyways, some guy off the street can come in and do as much damage as a guy that spent all this time learning the Bushido code and trying to represent Japan and be a somewhat of an inspiration to the peasantry of how to behave and how to act and how to carry yourself as a Japanese person, because there was still a sense of nationalism. You're still Japanese.
Oh boy, was there! And they were big into that shit.
Yeah, they were nationalists before the concept even showed up. You just tended to work for this guy or that guy, or you were a squire under this samurai. But
essentially, feudalism lasted longer.
Matthew Perry pretty much ended feudalism on accident by bringing all those firearms in there and make it. Once Japan was unified under the shogunate of one person because of firearms, and it was easier to control an angry mob or a samurai aristocracy uprising, they could squash it. They fucking put it under their fucking boot heel and call it a day.
I just wanted to point out how badass the samurai were. We all know that there was that the Mongolians were out conquering and they were super good at it, right?
Correct.
Well, I remember this story when the Mongolians reached the shore of Japan. The Mongolians did really well from their ships when they were shooting the arrows.
Yeah.
But as soon as the samurai got to the ship, that ship was done.
Yeah. Or the Mongols got on the land.
Well, see, that's where the concept of kamikaze comes from, the divine wind. There was a storm that knocked out a bunch of those ships. And by the time they ended up on the shore, we're just gonna go ahead and clean this mess up by stabbing everybody in the heart here. And
Yeah, this was a good kamikaze that I think everyone can agree on. The divine wind, it translates to. And
now, sidebar: if the Pope farts, is that a kamikaze?
no, because the Pope is a hologram.
Usually.
I see. Anyways, so now that you've militarized Japan, right? You've created this concept of a standing army, or at least a national militia that can be raised at a moment's notice, and you consolidated the power. What's the best way to keep power? By oppressing the shit out of your people.
Just gonna say.
And so Japan is an island nation, right? And it's lacking a lot of resources. So they also need to have colonies too. And so around the time of, I don't know, let's call it the turn of the century, they were eyeballing the mainland. And
this was 18 to 1900, yeah?
The late 1800s, early 1900s. Okay. By 1936, they had Joseon, which is modern day Korean Peninsula, and I want to say it's Manchukuo is the actual name of it, but it's more commonly referred to as Manchuria.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that northeast plume that's nestled by that loving Soviet embrace.
Yeah, that's where the candidate that we previously discussed in season 1 came from.
And so Japan is considered at least a recognized power at this point. And to backtrack just a little bit, in World War I, prior to World War I, the English and the Japanese had a treaty to be allies. The Japanese did their part. They went out and took any German possession in the Pacific Ocean and occupied it. And they said, "Oh, this is ours now. This is nice. We're gonna put a resort here."
This is also when you actually see a changeover in sort of Western clothing, basically, like became a thing. Like people wanted to start wearing like 3-piece suits and dressing like.
Yeah, I mean, even the military uniforms become a little bit. I mean, man, to me, just me looking at it, they kind of look. The big collars, they kind of make it look like they're 70s ish. Maybe I don't know if that's art imitating life or whatever. I don't know, but
yeah, they were going to go start a disco inferno in China.
Goddamn right. Anyways, so World War I ends, and they got a seat at the table at the Treaty of Versailles, and here they are sitting there thinking they're going to be treated as an equal. Hey man, we did our part, man. We lived up to our alliance with England, and we took out some German territories out here. I don't even know why we're calling it the Bismarck Sea anymore, because we took all their shit. They get stuffed, man. They get stuffed at the fucking line of scrimmage, and they're told, no, we're not gonna. No, you guys get nothing. Hey, thanks for playing. And they said, okay, well, we're out of here. Fuck you guys. We're not going to be part of the League of Nations or any of this other BS. This is dumb. From that point on, they have this complex of, well, I don't understand how France and England, and even to a lesser extent, America, maybe to the same extent, can have all these territories and colonies, but when we do it, they don't like it.
Yeah.
What's good for the goose ain't good for the gander.
Yeah, and as Dan Carlin put it in his show, he said, you see all these guys getting coosed up on steroids, getting colonies and stuff, they're filling their coffers off of these other countries that they're just exploiting the shit out of. And if we do it, we're the assholes, we're the problem? No, okay. Hey.
And you know what? I bet that had a direct influence, more or less, in why they would soon turn around and make an alliance with Germany.
And that was, I think that was more of a product of the time itself.
Well, yeah, obviously, but I'm sure that didn't. I mean, I bet that set a little fire under their asses. And those other guys.
And so, like most concepts or ideas, you have to have people show up. And you have to have either a transmission or, like our cultural exports tend to show up via TV, radio, leaflet dropped out of a Zeppelin. I don't know. And around the early teens of the 1900s, Freudianism shows up into Japan. And there's all this talk about the mind and the conscious and the subconscious and how it affects your everyday life. You know, if you don't take care of your subconscious will take care of you. And you have these issues.
This seems to be like not just Japanese, but
No, yeah, psychology in general was a very new school of thought. And
it was spreading, you know.
yeah.
To throw a callback out, we have Wilhelm Reich operating in Europe and America around this time when all these new writings are starting to come out, and these new genres are starting to come out, and it's all based off of this new, I say new, quote, new science, unquote, of psychiatry and psychology. And so now the monsters are worse because all these writers are starting to dig deep into the human psyche, and they're just digging deep into themselves of like the most cruel, heinous thing they can think of, like psychologically speaking, you know. And it's not a Frankenstein, it's not a ghost, it's man. Man is the monster.
So they're doing themselves a favor by facing their inner demons or their inner fears.
Quite possibly, if that's how the reader wanted to walk away from it.
I'm sure that was part of the intent, most definitely. They may have, you know, sort of, for lack of a better term, let the demons out of Pandora's box as well. There's definitely that effect.
Yeah,
some of it.
I did that from a fast food joint the other night. And here we are. We just did that. We just did a big circumnavigational loop back to where we need to be here. Now that you have a little bit of backstory about what's going on, you have a little bit more understanding of when I say
this is what created the man.
So Rampo is the son of a merchant who also practiced law. What law he practiced is a little bit beyond me. I'm sorry. I did my best to find it. And but get this, his granddad was a fucking samurai.
So yeah.
So
direct correlation or connection.
So now Rampo grew up listening to stories from his granddad saying, back in my day, if somebody cut in front of me at the goddamn coffee shop, I'd cut their head off.
Back in my day,
for real,
all this was covered in shit.
Yeah, exactly. And all granddads in Japan sounded like Casey Kasem.
I thought that was more of a Jack Lemmon, but okay.
So
the Casey Kasem samurai.
Yeah.
Coming up next on our list of top 100 heads chopped off.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you haven't succumbed to the cultural export that is Japanese history yet, then you're missing out on great stuff because, man,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
there's some hardcore people, man.
Even the Flying Guillotine himself, the RZA, brings up the stuff all the time. I'm a huge Wu-Tang fan, huge RZA fan.
Oh, we all are.
Oh, yeah. But so you grow up listening to these stories, and you grow up in that country with this kind of thing happening, you know, like a lot. I'd like to say that at least here in the States, you know, we've been relatively at peace, you know, like from that time, from we had the Civil War and then silence till World War I, and that
no one's come here to fuck our shit up specifically
in that time frame, right? Yeah. And then like to say the same about
like 2 airplanes and like Japanese that one time, but
we're not talking about that time frame. We're talking about from
that's small potatoes, really, in the grand scheme of things.
We're talking about Commodore Perry's time to the actual start of war. Anyways. That threw me off for a second.
Sorry, I just had to be accurate. We can cut that part out if you want.
So to cross-reference what was going on with Japan compared to Europe, in 1872, 1871, 1872, you had the German War of Unification, in which they kicked the shit out of France. I know we keep talking about France and how they keep, you know, losing their rifles. But
hey man, de Gaulle was a badass.
Yeah, but this is 1871. And
I know, I'm just saying, you know, sooner or later.
He rose from the dead just to prove he could.
Yeah, wasn't he like shot like 7 or 8 times?
He also quit NATO just because he could. All right, well, here, I'm gonna, no, sorry, cut that out. He said, oh, no, you guys, I'm going to leave just because I can. But the longest peace in Europe around this time was between the War of German Unification in 1871, where they took Alsace-Lorraine or Alsace-Luther, and World War I, which is about 50 years.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's the longest peacetime in modern history in Europe up until that point. And so here's our guy. He's as a kid, he's already seen the Japanese-Russo War. He's seen expansion into Manchukuo/Manchuria, and now he's, as an adult, as a full-on author, like able to decide and write and improve upon culture and history and all that jazz. Here it is, the Imperial Japanese Army and Navy have decided that they're going to move into China and Indonesia and the Philippines and so on and so forth. You all know the story. That's a little bit of background he lived in, and as he aged, became an adult in 1912. I know I'm jumping around a bit, but in 1912 he ended up going to college, and he was a poli-sci major and an economics major. I think that's kind of strange.
Yeah.
How old was he when he went to school?
Oh man, he must have been 17.
Oh,
I think when he started college.
He was like the appropriate age then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think that's another like cultural thing. He probably wanted to, I think he did want to write since a young age, but
huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe and Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
And he loves the art of the mystery.
Yeah.
You know?
However, being an artist doesn't pay or provide for your family, etc., which is once again a bit of a cultural thing as well.
Not unless you're syndicated, as we've all learned here on this show.
Yeah. Getting them royalties.
His contributions are many, and I in our previous rendition of this, I had said that he's kind of like the Beck of his genres. He reinvents them even as he transcends them. And I mean, the guy's a genius. I mean, you get locked into his stuff. It's even a brief synopsis of what he wrote is just engrossing in and of itself. And I hope that when Mike gives you his synopsis of these things, you too will be engrossed and be compelled by nature to learn methodically how to find the killer.
Really, if it's not even that. Okay, basically, I'll start with the genre that he's best known for. He did not single-handedly create this genre, but he did sort of solidify these disparate elements to create it. And it's what's known as Edo Guro Nonsensu, which translates to erotic, grotesque nonsense, which also sounds like much of my early 20s to early 30s.
Hell yeah, it does.
Basically, the genre is defined as covering things such as quote-unquote abnormal sexuality, people who are disfigured, various societal taboos, stuff like that. So really, it's also got this element of you can't help but stop and look at a car wreck. There's that sort of like morbid curiosity thing going on in the back. Like these are features of the stories, but they sort of like push the story along. The rest, and also this Edo Guro Nonsensu was also basically determined, like the name was applied by mass culture to what they more or less saw as the counterculture. Because as Matt explained earlier, much of Japan the culture was basically filtered through this imperial, militarized sort of mindset. That
you might say authoritarian.
Yeah.
That might be an understatement.
So they referred to this erotic, grotesque nonsense, with the nonsense largely being, for most of these writers, alternative political views. So you can see how it was like outright dismissed with a lot of these guys. But
at the time, would the Japanese culture in general be considered more or less conservative socially than the Americans?
I would say largely conservative.
Okay. Hell, even today, I would think they're still a little bit more conservative, at least in the sense of
social interaction.
There's
honor being a big part of society and culture.
The whole exchange between two Americans and business cards and all that stuff is way less formal than when two businessmen in Japan meet. I would presumably, because there's also, I respect the bow. That is,
me too.
When someone does that to me, like, shit, well, I'm compelled now. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I've ever been bowed to, but
yeah,
You gotta take karate,
in the future, my enemies will know.
they'll just drop a knee.
especially if you know karate.
They'll drop a deuce. They fucking don't know what I'm bringing to the party. The actual first instance of Edo Guro can actually be traced back to the 1800s from a woodblock called The Dream of the Fisherman's Wife, which is actually the oldest known instance of tentacle porn. So there's that as well.
Weird.
Love the blank reaction. All right.
Yeah, I'm just
I was
stunned.
adjusting the monitor. Sorry.
I was stunned.
Yeah, you should check it out. Take a look at it. It's
Take a look at tit.
quite visually beautiful. Yeah. Other than Edo Guro Nansensu, the fact that he was also a huge fan of detective novels, he wrote a lot of them, which utilized something that Edgar Allan Poe created called ratiocination, which is basically the process of exact thinking, reasoning, or a reasoned train of thought, which is pretty much what Sherlock Holmes is known for. It's what he does. So that's basically his two main contributions to literature are in these genres. To give you an idea of what exactly Edo Guro Nansensu sort of consists of, I've got a couple of story synopses here. These are some of his best-known, most overly published books, lots of second and third editions, English and et cetera, other language translations. So we've got The Human Chair, 1925. Easily one of Rampo's creepiest stories, The Human Chair is about a young female writer named Yoshiko who receives a strange letter from a fan. Yoshiko's pleasure soon turns to horror and dread as the writer confesses his disturbing actions. Unbeknownst to anyone, the writer has been secretly entering a chair in Yoshiko's house because of a bizarre fetish to be turned into a piece of human furniture. The descriptions and motives are enough to give you the chills even today. On a side note, check out horror manga artist Junji Ito's retelling sequel to The Human Chair. And by the way, three particular manga artists manga and anime are also largely influenced by Edogawa Rampo. And I'd say the main three you might want to check out. Junji Ito, he's got like a Netflix special series that came out recently, worth checking out.
You're welcome, Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix. Thanks for the Kooks Cranks bump once again. I'm just handing them out left and right today. There is also Suhiro Maruo, who has a very distinct art style that looks like crazy fucking 1920s like Russian propaganda or just like propaganda posters from around the world. But most of his stories are on the very extreme side. Like he probably takes Edo Guro to the extreme, well known for more of his disturbing imagery. And then the last one, I believe, is Shintaro Kago, who has a much more like modern sort of cyberpunk meets MC Escher. It's just like a fucking sensory overload, basically. But his stuff is way more out there, experimental type shit. But all three definitely worth checking out. After that, we've got The Black Lizard, 1934, starring Rampo's most memorable character, Detective Kogoro Akechi. This is easily one of Rampo's most famous works. In it, the star private detective matches wits with a female master criminal, the titular Black Lizard. The prize is the illustrious... I knew you'd like that. The prize is the illustrious gemstone, the Star of Egypt, and the Black Lizard will stop at nothing to get it, even kidnapping its owner's daughter. Twists and turns abound as Akechi and the Black Lizard outsmart and double-cross each other, all the while dealing with thick sexual tension that they share.
Oh my.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly a thick sexual tension. I don't know.
I've seen some
documentaries. I think I know what it means.
It drips.
It's not quite a mop and it's not quite a puppet.
But man, you don't know, do you? Not as such, no. Next up, we've got The Blind Beast, 1931. If the human chair is Rampo's creepiest story, then the blind beast is his most outright horrific. The titular, made sense to have two at least. Beast is a blind man who kidnaps women and imprisons them in his strange dungeon with sculptures of female anatomy. Obsessed with the sense of touch, the blind man uses and degrades his captives before tiring and disposing of them in grotesque and theatrical ways. For example, he ties a severed arm to a balloon, encouraging school children to chase after it. As mentioned, The Blind Beast is not just a mystery novel, but pure horror, and there is no Detective Akechi to bring the killer to justice. Next up, we've got Horrors of Malformed Men, 1969, the movie version. Based off of Rampo's novel, The Strange Tale of Panorama Island, this movie has earned an infamous reputation over the years. An amnesiac named Hirosuke escapes from an insane asylum and discovers that a perfect doppelganger of his has recently died. Investigation leads him to a mysterious island where the inhabitants have been transformed into hideous monsters. Hirosuke delves further into a labyrinthine mystery full of horror and insanity before learning the truth about his own tortured past. And next to last, Watcher in the Attic, 1976. I'll preface this by saying that if any of you out there have seen the excellent film Grosse Pointe Blank, the opening scene is based on this novel. Watcher in the Attic, 1976. The 1925 short story Stalker in the Attic, the 76 version is the film, forms the backbone of this movie, but it borrows heavily from many other of Rampo's works, notably The Human Chair. The landlord of an apartment building has a disturbing habit of crawling around in the attic and spying on his tenants. Just as he is growing bored with his passive voyeurism, the landlord is discovered by a woman, as she is being eaten out by a clown. That's true. Seriously. She purposely suffocates him while the landlord looks on. Convinced she's his soulmate, the landlord decides to prove his love by claiming a victim of his own. Set in the Taisho era of the early 1920s, this movie exemplifies the Edo Guro Nansensu of the period, where so many Rampo adaptations are set. There are many versions of this, but get the 1976 version made during the age of the Roman porno subgenre of Japanese cinema. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. And finally, we've got The Caterpillar, which I'm going to hand off to Matt.
The Caterpillar, written in 1937, was a short story about the horrors of war where a soldier goes off to fight the good fight and is returned home as a quadriplegic and is reduced to nothing more than a basic human caterpillar. This short story was very popular up until the Marco Polo Bridge incident, and the Japanese imperial government told Rampo to stop and to remove all issues of this from the circulation. You know, don't want to hurt the war effort. Sorry, we had a thing. We forgot how the song ended. Anyways, he got in a lot of trouble for this.
Was I supposed to say something there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
My fucking hat keeps hitting stuff. Anyways, this story is a tale about a quadriplegic so disfigured by a war that he was nothing more than a human caterpillar, is the synopsis of the story. The Japanese government was so upset to hear that this was out there that they just went ahead and told him that he needed to stop publishing this. And so at that point in his career is when he decided that it would be best to start writing under a pseudonym name and start writing pro-war stuff so that way he could at least still publish things and still get some kind of royalties out of his work.
This is about the time that he started concentrating more on detective stories, such as the previously mentioned Kogoro Akechi character, the stories of his villainous, the Fiend with 21 Faces, which is one of the first literary villains, actually.
I think it was the Fiend with 20 Faces. And
was
the
it?
Terrorist group was the
monster with 21? So it's
Yeah.
21 in real life, 20 in the book.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Easy mistake. And then you also have the Boy Detectives Club, which were basically the Japanese equivalent of the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew. Yeah, this was all considered bad for the war effort. There's a sort of... there's there's like mainstream culture, and this was all considered counterculture. And this sort of persists to this day. There's a concept or cultural phenomenon in Japan today called kawaii, which is basically like Hello Kitty and all the like cute little animal shit that you see everywhere in the middle of the city. It's sort of meant to
be soft and non-threatening.
Yeah, exactly. It makes everything cutesy, and people sort of like there's a public I won't say outcry, but like the people in charge of things sort of prefer to promote this cultural phenomenon in order to keep things light and happy. So yeah,
and this is by design.
Yeah.
Even today, it's still discouraged to teach Japanese youth their role or what the country's role was in World War II, or as the Japanese call it, the Great Expansion.
Yeah.
So we're following suit.
So during the war, Edogawa was moved from Tokyo to Fukushima because of the bombings. They were getting closer and closer every time. The U.S. approved that it could reach Tokyo and do fire bombings, and a lot of the buildings in Japan were still wooden structure. It was very common. So firebombing was very easy and effective. And so him and his family had to be evacuated. And being of the bloodline he is with a samurai granddad and all that, it seemed like it was going to be pretty easy for him to escape a lot of the damage. But it seems like a small note now in regards to that. But after the war, a lot of his writing started picking up more. And he didn't live very long after the total surrender. He actually passed away in 1965 after fighting several terrible health conditions, such as Parkinson's disease and a sudden case of cerebral hemorrhaging, which usually will knock anyone's dick in the dirt.
Yeah, pardon me, my brain is bleeding.
Yeah, especially since that's where most of us think.
Yeah. And it wasn't even, I guess it was 19 years after that we got into a whole brand new fiasco based on something this guy had come up with.
Yeah. We're actually about to discuss a no shit for real life case of what I would call outright supervillainy, really. And anyone who knows me knows I like to root for the supervillain. This case is known by several names, mostly as the Glyco Morinaga case, but more fucking cooler sounding is the monster with 21 faces.
All this and more next.
Stay tuned. March 18th, 1984. At roughly 9 p.m., two masked assailants just burst into the home of Izaki Glyco Candy Company president, Katsuhika Izaki, using a key they'd stolen from his grandmother's house next door after leaving her tied up with a telephone cord. Armed with a pistol, now believed to be a toy, the two men tied up Izaki's wife, Miki Eko, 35 years old, and eldest daughter, Mariko, 7. Miki Eko offered the two men money, to which one of them responded, "Be quiet, money is irrelevant." While bathing his two other children, Yukiko, 4, and Etsuro, 11, Izaki was then abducted while naked and taken to a warehouse in Ibaraki, Osaka. Yeah, I guess we need
He was naked with his 11-year-old and 4-year-old?
I think he was bathing.
Yeah, he was in the bath with them, which I guess is...
All right.
I don't know. The culture's different over there about that.
I was going to say, it's appropriate for them. That's cool. That's cool.
The next day, kidnappers demanded 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold to be deposited into a phone booth at an undisclosed location. That would be equal to $10 million in today's money. 2 to 3 days later, Izaki escapes and finds 2 railroad employees to contact the police. He informed them he did not know his captors and could not identify them, and could not also identify a motive.
On April 8, 1984, the monster with 21 faces sent a letter to police saying,
There's no fellows in the Izaki's relatives. There's no fellows in Nishinomiya police. There's no fellows in Flood Fighting Corps. Car I used is gray. Food was bought at Daiei. If you want new info, beg for it in the newspaper. After telling you all this, you should be able to catch me. If you don't, you are tax thieves. Shall I kidnap the head director of the prefectural police?
Kidnappers demanded $480,000, threatening to poison Candy with cyanide. To prove they were serious, they set cars in the corporate parking lot of Glyco ablaze. Following the blaze, they soon received a letter.
Dear Dome police officers, don't tell a lie. All crimes begin with a lie, as well as say in Japan. Don't you know that? Why don't you keep it to yourself? You seem to be at a loss, so why don't we help you? We'll give you a clue. We entered the factory through the front gate. The typewriter is a pen writer. The plastic container used was a piece of street garbage. Monster with 21 faces.
none of these poison candies were found, but Glyco products were removed from stores, resulting in a loss of more than $20 million and laying off 450 part-time workers. By the end of the whole ordeal, Glyco reported a total decrease in sales of nearly $130 million. On June 26, the monster with 21 faces issued a message proclaiming its forgiveness of Glyco, and subsequent harassment of the company ceased. However, they soon found a new target in the Morinaga Company, another confectionery company, and food companies Marudai Ham and House Food Corporations with similar criminal campaigns using the same alias. In October 1984, a letter addressed to Moms of the Nation and signed by the monster with 21 faces was sent to Osaka news agencies with a warning similar to those of the one sent to Glyco. It stated that 20 packages of Morinaga candy had been laced with deadly sodium cyanide. After receiving this letter, police searched stores in cities from Tokyo to Western Japan and found over a dozen lethal packages of Morinaga Choco Balls and Angel Pie before anyone was poisoned. These packages had labels such as "Danger contains toxins put on them." More tampered confections were found in February 1985 for a total of 21 lethal sweet products. On November 1st, 1984, a threatening letter from the monster with 21 faces arrived at the Tokyo home of Morinaga Dairy Vice President Mitsuo Yamada. It read,
Company, you will get killed. Decide whether you want to give us money or do you want to see your company destroyed. Tell us in the Mainichi newspaper on either the 5th or 6th of November. Use the missing persons. Use these words in the reply. Jiro, Morinaga, mother, police, bad friend, money, meal. As we said before, we want 200 million yen. Monster with 21 faces.
Morinaga responded on November 6 to the criminals by placing the missing persons advertisement in the Mainichi newspaper's morning edition. It read, Dear Jiro, bad friend disappeared. Come back. Warm meal is waiting. Mother Chiyoko. Unable to capture the suspect believed to be the mastermind behind the monster with 21 faces, the police superintendent Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture died of suicide by self-immolation in August 1985. 5 days after this event, on August 12, the monster sent its final message to the media.
Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. We've got no friends or secret hiding place in Shiga. It's Yoshino or Shitaka who should have died. What have they been doing for so long as 1 year and 5 months? Don't let bad guys like us get away with it. There are many fools who want to copy us. No career Yamamoto died like a man, so we decided to give you our condolence. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food-making companies, it's not us, but someone copying us. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. Monster with 21 faces.
After this letter, the monster with 21 faces was not heard from again. The statute of limitation for the kidnapping of Katsuhisa Izaki, president of Glyco, ran out in June 95, and the statute of limitation for the attempted poisonings ran out in February 2000. At one point, it was even estimated that over 1 million police officers had worked on the case in some capacity or another over the years, chasing down more than 28,000 tips and investigating nearly 125,000 persons of interest. However, no suspect was ever charged. Let's talk about some of the suspects.
Absolutely. Man, that was a good edition of hard copy.
Right? Very dramatic.
Yeah.
I had chills all through my body.
I had to pee.
I don't want to mention where I had chills.
We've done our jobs correctly.
October 7th?
Yeah, Matt, take it away on our first suspect there.
October 7th, 1984. The videotape man was caught on CCTV video. Fortunately, the tape in the video cassette player had been reused for over a year, so the quality had diminished to mere granule speculation of who this man actually was or even his facial features.
Was it a man?
And what's fecal facial features?
Oh, man. You don't want to know.
Been there, done that.
Got the T-shirt.
What fraternity was that?
TANG.
That's a good one.
Wu-Tang.
October 7th. The videotape man was caught on CCTV in a local convenience store, picking up and putting down something that resembled one of the candies that had been tainted.
Sorry, go on.
Was it mystically tainted?
I wish. This man has never been found. Shortly after that, a recorded message was left by a group of one woman and one child, giving directions to leave money behind in a seat at a bus stop bench. And as an editorial here, I just got to say, this is fucking hard. This is hard news to deliver.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just so emotional. No.
The videotape man was like a very nondescript businessy man type person. And even the video evidence they have of him is on a VHS, which is, we all know, VHS is like notoriously grainy. I mean, especially even now compared to what we have here. But in 1985, 1984, especially
super shitty.
Yeah, if you reuse the same VHS and keep recording Terminator 2 over and over again on it, every time it comes on TNT or whatever, it's going to degrade and look like dog shit.
Yeah.
They'd use that same videotape for at least a year.
It's going to look like the girl from The Ring is actually fucking crawling out of it.
Yeah.
So.
Video and audio cassette are some of the worst.
Wait, you mean the VHS looks like it's fallen out of the girl from The Ring?
Vice versa.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got confused there because we're all so mixed up here.
Yeah, same with Xerox. A copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
It's,
and then
we've all seen Multiplicity. I mean, the third clone is sticking pizza in his goddamn wallet, for crying out loud.
And then so this guy was thought to be Miyazaki, a known family member of Yakuza and other illegal nefarious activities. In fact, the guy was very openly admitting to a lot of crimes he committed after the statute of limitations had run out. And in his book that he released shortly after the statute of limitations ended on these crimes, he actually uses the sketch of the Fox-eyed man, a candidate that Mike will tell you about.
Yeah. And just quick side note, most Yakuza members, very open with their crimes. I don't know, they're sort of, established as much as like the police and everything. They're a cultural norm as well, sort of a given.
So they're pretty keen on just telling you that they jaywalked and stuff.
They're very matter of fact about it, and they'll show you a switchblade to put a point to the
punctuation.
Yeah. Oh, fucking puns.
Yeah.
I love them. The Fox-Eyed Man is actually the most mysterious of the possible culprits. June 28th, 1984, 2 days after the monster agreed to stop harassing, I believe the other company was, it was a Morinaga sub-company, Marudai-Ham, in exchange for 50 million yen. The police came close to capturing the supposed mastermind. An investigator disguised himself as one of the Marudai employees and followed the monster's instructions for the money exchange. As he was riding the train to the money's drop point, he noticed a suspicious man watching him. He was described as large, well-built man wearing sunglasses with his hair cut short and permed, also wearing a business suit, so pretty much looking like damn near every Japanese man at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
So the perm was popular in Japan in the 80s too?
Are we talking about that one that had like kind of long hair in the back?
No, it's a very much a businessman. I think it
like
was
the
just
Kirk Cameron haircut.
Yeah, kind of. I think it was just sort of I don't know. We could get into the subtle intricacies of Japanese hair, but all I really know about it for sure is that there's a cursed doll that every time they cut its hair, it keeps growing back.
Japan hair.
Yeah. But the reason the man got the name the Fox-Eyed Man is because the investigators who had followed him said that he seemed to have had the eyes of a fox, also known as Kitsune mi no Otoko, which eventually led them to later incidents where investigators saw this same man accompanied by the alleged monster group during another secret money exchange with House Food Corporation. Once again, he was able to elude police capture, and to this day, this whole goddamn rigmarole that we've just been talking about remains unsolved. So, I don't know. We mainly just, we threw it in because, obviously, they adopted their name, well, maybe his name, maybe her name, from the Edogawa Rampo villain, literary villain. There was one more potential group of suspects, Matt?
Yeah, the oh man, I already forgot the name of that company.
Glyco?
Was it Glyco or was it the
Morinaga?
Morinaga company?
I don't know which one exactly, but
it's one of the two. I want to say it's the Morinaga company and Morinaga and Company. So this one's a big fan favorite on the Internerd. We're learning your terms, kids.
Internerd.
The internet. So that company had been around prior to 1985 and 86 when all this is going down. They used to make powdered milk that they'd use to substitute for formula. Somehow they managed to screw up powdered milk.
Probably most likely through negligence.
Gross negligence. Yeah.
The grossest of negligence is.
So they managed to somehow slip arsenic into the powdered milk.
How the fuck does that happen?
If
it's not a fucking extortion terrorist group putting it in your food.
So here's my hot take on that is maybe they were trying to make almond milk, and since the olfactory gland recognizes cyanide and almonds as the same smell, somebody got confused and put that in there.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a possible connection. I just still don't understand how fucking arsenic is lying around anywhere near. I mean,
well,
that's just the part that gets to me. It probably was another case. I would say most likely of sabotage to a degree. I think maybe like a fucking disgruntled employee or something. Maybe it was Manabu Miyazaki who apparently had a labor dispute with these companies earlier, like 10 years prior.
As a sidebar correction, cyanide is smells like almonds, not arsenic. Arsenic's in everything, though, man. It was in type 2 lumber and insecticides and.
Well, was it arsenic or cyanide that was in the baby formula?
It was arsenic that was in there.
Okay.
And so a lot of people.
So then there's more of a possibility that they just got like a chemical balance or whatever wrong and sort of strengthen up already naturally present arsenic.
Well, there's not supposed to be arsenic present in any milk of any animal, but.
Well, isn't this like powdered baby or formula?
Powdered milk.
Oh, okay. I thought formula was like something totally different.
Well, I mean, the equivalent, I guess.
I thought it had what plants crave.
No, it doesn't have what plants need.
Nutrients and other such bullshits.
High grade phosphorus. Sorry. No, the arsenic was they still to this day they couldn't quite explain it, and they had quite a few injuries, I guess is the way you'd phrase it. And I believe it was they had 169 deaths as a result of the arsenic contamination in the powdered milk, and that's nationwide. But that's deaths. That doesn't include injuries or permanent injury.
Dang.
And so it's theorized that from 1955 to 1984, all these people that survived may have had a support group and may have been in the mindset of let's get revenge. But they started with another company instead of this one because to throw them off. And that's where it kind of runs. You have motive, but the actual crime and attempt is off. And mind you, out of all the demands that these guys made, that this corporate terrorist group made, they never got any money.
Right.
At all.
They also, the stuff that they did or at least threatened to do, nobody, was hurt or they found everything.
And in fact, Mike, they reported on this article that I watched that the consumption, according to the Department of Agriculture in Japan, the sweets consumption dropped by 10% over 1 year because of the constant threats to the candy.
Yeah.
And you could probably do that here in the States and they'd be like, I'll take my chances.
Yeah. You ain't stopping, we got too many hangry people in this fucking country who need to snap into a Snickers or whatever the fucking
Cinnabon.
Yeah.
Yeah. More rhymes than a tasty cake makes.
Yeah. That, man, see, this story, dude, would make a fucking awesome movie. Especially every fucking movie and their mom pulls the whole based on a true story shit. And once you say based on a true story, you got a lot of wiggle room for some fucking fictional poetic license.
We just changed the names, dates, and events to protect everyone.
Like that time we pulled that minnow out of Matt's ear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened.
That was based on a true story.
Yeah. But yeah, I could see this as being like a badass, like kind of mystery movie. And then maybe at the end you find out I would feel like the most satisfying ending would be that it was people who got fucked over by these companies and were out for revenge.
And they just drew them offside so hard that no one ever could prove anything.
But knowing how reality really works, I'm sure it was probably, this is probably just a couple like fucking low class criminals who, albeit pulled off something from outside, makes a fucking cool story. But they were just probably people looking to fucking make a quick buck through extortion.
Well, think of it this way, man. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even longer. There was a movie out about the conspiracy about catalytic converters. And if that's a big
I've heard of that.
Yeah, if that's a big effing hit, then I can only imagine what destroying Halloween in Japan is like when you make the movie, but you just bring it over here and it's like, based on the true story, we destroyed Halloween for all the kids.
With Godzilla.
Yeah. Like, there was a...
you leave him out of this.
Yeah.
I think it's
fucking Mothra.
It's Gojira.
Because it lays eggs.
Remember that Gamma Ross song?
From MST3K?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna sing it here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sing that either.
People in Radical Radio Land, you're just gonna have to go watch episodes of MST3K and become fans of the show because you will. It'll happen.
I would sing it, but I don't know it.
In America, actually, final closing tidbit. There was a very similar case to this called the aspirin poisoning case, where some fucking random lone nut ended up poisoning a bunch of, it was aspirin. I think it was aspirin. It was headache medicine, basically. Yeah. And they had to pull a bunch from the shelves. So, I mean, this is not,
It was false to cyanide capsule medicine.
Yeah. Ian Fleming's company made it.
Yeah.
To call back to our last episode.
See, last-ish.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Editor's note. Yeah, so I mean, this stuff, fucking, it happens. People gain access. I would hope that, like, in the last couple of years, things have they've tightened up ship or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, well, even with the tampered headache medicine, you have the tamper evidence seal on everything now because of that. That didn't exist prior to that case.
It did not.
And even now in Japan, I would think that.
Oh, I'm sure they fucking really up their game.
Yeah, the fact that these guys with 21 faces were polite enough to say, this has cyanide, eat at your own risk, or equivalent, at least they're going to warn you.
Yeah. See, that kind of like feeds back into the whole, maybe these guys who were doing this weren't totally fucking crooked.
And it's allegedly.
Supposedly.
There we go.
Possibly.
Somewhere in the vein of possibility. It's been stated by a few of these articles that the amount of cyanide poison was not enough to do any real damage or kill anyone. But that's there's so many sources out. I mean, it's big news there, and it's made mythology and lure as far as the crime world is concerned over there. But here in the U.S., I wasn't alive yet, and I'm pretty sure you guys were.
I was a wee lad. I was a baby.
I was born in 81.
A wee bairn.
Just a baby. It's not like you were like checking CNN at 4 or 5, J-Lo. And
I don't know, my parents beat me into hypervigilance at a young age.
Yeah. You were your own CNN. I don't even think CNN existed at that point. But yeah.
Connie Chung did.
Sure.
Cut that
you
out.
mention her because she's fucking tangentially Asian. So yeah, that's our Edogawa Rampo episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We know we enjoyed making it, even though this is probably one of the hardest episodes we had to put the most work into.
I thought James Shelby Downward was hard, but at least we took timeouts. All right, there was like 3 or 4 technical timeouts.
Well,
here.
we take timeouts all the time.
Yeah, but usually we
take the time to take timeouts.
Yeah, we were rolling through this.
Yeah,
but
I mean, that took like several days to get it right. But at least we're getting all this in one lump sum setting.
It's like the rape cake sketch all over again. Y'all
inside joke.
Yeah, y'all find out about that.
I know. You told me about it
at some point.
But yeah. So we hope, really, thank you all once again for tuning in. We really hope that you are liking the show. We're seeing a bit of a we are getting some listeners. We're not doing this all for nothing, which validates us quite immensely. So thank you, and thank you all, because really,
without you, there is no us.
Yeah, we wouldn't keep doing it if we didn't think that people were going to listen to it and or enjoy it. So thank you very much, everyone.
I want to say thank you to the U.S., to the United Kingdom, to Laos, and Norway for listening to us.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Shout out to our international listeners. Thanks, guys. That we never, ever, ever would have dreamed. In fact, I believe a few episodes back, I mentioned something about having listeners in France, and then I immediately said, boy, the level of delusion on me to think that we would have that we would have listeners in another country so soon out the gate. But no, fucking that's so fucking awesome. Yeah, so thank you out there.
And as always, guys, reach us at facebook.com/Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclast. And you can always get us at the gmails.com, at kooks, cranks, and iconoclast at gmail.com.
That's Kooks with a K.
Yes.
Otherwise, it'd be cooks.
Yeah. Little,
KCI.
yeah.
Yeah. Shorthand for us here on the show.
Yeah. Some of us just call it Kooks. Well, I call us Kooks Cranks, or Kooks and Cranks, just for short. So,
We wish we were
Yeah.
iconoclasts.
yeah. Well,
Once-
we'll get there.
Yeah, when we get to the point where we're interviewing people that matter to you, the viewer, then we'll start shorthanding everything to KCI, because by then you'll already know.
You'll know it. Well, people in general will know
Yeah.
what the fuck we're talking about.
And
So,
on that note, it would appear that it's Nudie Magazine Day, and it's also New Comic Book Day. So I gotta get down there to Keith's Comics there and make some transactions.
Another KCI bump. You're welcome, Keith's Comics. Didn't cost you nothing. Yeah. So once again, thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike,
I'm Matt.
I'm J-Lo.
and this has been the Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclast podcast. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Whoop.
You sound just like whenever they have the big exaggerated facial features. You have no honor. You were with Kazuki, and now you are with Tabitha.